And you should be all set, Rebecca.
Thank you.
I will mute.
Sorry, I'm just trying to move the bar around so I can get to where I need to be. Okay. Hello, my name is Rebecca Kahn. For my thesis project, I will be designing a wellness retreat. Before I begin, I would like to introduce my external thesis advisor, Sarah, and thank her for all her time and all of her knowledge she has given me along the way. I would also like to introduce my internal thesis advisor, Abby, and thank her for all of her time and knowledge she has given me as well. As I move forward in my presentation, this will be the agenda I will be following, which will consist of the precedent study, program, focus areas, and everything in between. As I began my thesis project, I thought about what I wanted to accomplish. The problem I am addressing is how mental illnesses are hard to overcome because people don't know where to get the help or aren't comfortable getting the help from a doctor. The solution or goal being to spread awareness around mental illnesses and create a safe place for individuals to learn coping mechanisms and healthy lifestyle changes to implement into their daily lives. The research that has been conducted is around the success rates wellness retreats have in helping with different mental illnesses. And then to the right are some images of the current existing property that I will be renovating into a wellness retreat. For my precedent study and research, I picked one of the precedent studies that spoke to my project the most, which is Rhythmia Resort. Rhythmia is located in Costa Rica. One of the many qualities I liked about the resort was how it has guests fill out forms before they come to the retreat so they can curate a 7-night program for them for when they get there. So it's easier for the user to seamlessly go through the spaces and get the help that they need that they're looking for. Some other qualities of the resort that I would like to implement into my project is the private lodging and the farm to table. Moving on to the research that I've done on this resort, a specific portion that stuck with me was the keywords from the reviews I got from TripAdvisor. These words are how I would like individuals to feel after they leave the wellness retreat I am designing. So amazing, safe, personal growth and healing. Those are like key words that I want each person to truly feel after they leave. For my site analysis, I have a couple of different maps going on. So my site is located in Santa Barbara, California. Like I stated before, I have a couple of different maps. So the one to the left is for the sun path, and that's of the site location itself. The one in the middle shows the attractions around the site. And then I have an overview of California, just so you can kind of get an idea of where Santa Barbara is located. For my existing floor plans, I have 3 different existing structures, the first being my main building. This is highlighted in my key site plan in orange. The dashed lines are walls that have been removed, while the solid lines will be the walls that remain. Next, I have building 1 and 2. Building 1 will be turned into a yoga studio, which is highlighted in gray, and building 2, which is dark green, which will be known as the short-term daycare. Like I stated before, the dashed lines are walls to be removed and solid lines to remain. The other structures you see on the site plan are to be built and brought on the site. This brings me to my concept. I have 4 phrases and asterisks that are potential names for my concept, but haven't decided on which one I would like to use. For my concept, it is centered around a butterfly. I got my inspiration from the curves and veinings in the wings, as well as the transparency that they have when light shines on them. While I designed this project, I will be implementing the curved idea as well as taking into consideration how delicate a butterfly is. I want my space to feel effortless when the user goes through the buildings, like how a butterfly floats effortlessly through the air. Fabrics and other detailing will cater to the patterns in the wings as well as the softness of the body of a butterfly. And then the color palette that you see to the right will be used throughout the whole design, and it reflects the butterfly shown in the bottom left corner. For my program, I have broken it up into buildings and spaces. This program addresses the main building, level 1 to the left, and then level 2 to the right. The highlighted areas in pink are my focus areas, which will be addressed later on in this presentation. I have also included a key plan to give relevance to where the buildings are located. So I'll be designing my spa, butterfly garden, and my cafe. Next, I will go over the yoga studio, previously known as Building 1, and the short-term daycare, previously known as Building 2. In the yoga studio, there will be a gender-neutral bathroom, and in the short-term daycare, there will be a kids' bathroom. The last portion of my program is for the yurts and outdoor areas. For the yurts, there will be 2 different kinds: the 2-floor yurt that has a half bath, 2 bedrooms, and a balcony, while the 1-floor yurt will be ADA compliant with a deck out front. The yurts can be seen in the blue in the KEEP site plan. And then for the outdoor areas, there will be a pool and a gathering area, which is highlighted in green. For my bubble diagram, I have 5 different areas that I've decided to go with. The green are overnight rooms, the tan is the amenities, orange is the wet areas, cream is the private rooms, blue is for the public areas. I have also made a curved arrow that indicates that there are rooms upstairs adjacent to the rooms it connects to below. There are also solid lines that have 2 arrows on either end. And that's to show direct routes, so it's easy access for the users to get to. And then I have some dashed lines for indirect routes, so it's a little bit off path, but still easy for the user to get to. And these lines will mimic the veining in a butterfly wing, which will later be turned into pathways in my site plan. And I just want to touch upon a little bit more on my bubble diagram here, that I didn't include all of the spaces because I felt that it was stronger with the main spaces that most people will be using in the facility versus doing all of them. For my new construction floor plans, I will be going over 6 different slides for them. So there's quite a few to go over. For this one, this is the level 1 of the main building. I wanted to show my new construction floor plan to get feedback on the layout to see if it's user-friendly and makes sense for the overall project that I'm designing. I do have some furniture that has been placed, which will be seen later on during my mood boards. But as you enter the main building, you can see the arrow in the front that shows the entrance that you would take. And then the indications of the green is actually for different flooring types and pattern. So this will help with like wayfinding around the building as well. And then this is my level 2 of the main building. The inner wall will be completely glass, so people who are in the restaurant can see into the butterfly garden, and that's highlighted in orange. And then the rooms that are highlighted in red, those are to either be expanded or to stay the size that they are right now. I'm just currently undecided because I know there's a lot of empty space upstairs, and I want to make sure I do maximize the most I can. Next, I have the yoga studio. So I have a bar wall to the left, and that's where like stretching would be done. And then I have some open floor area for other activities, as well as a deck out front, the ADA gender neutral bathroom, and then 3 closets in the back. And then I have the short-term daycare, which is still undecided for a name. I'm still in the works of that. But in this, I have a vestibule so people can be buzzed in. So no one's just walking into the daycare. They can actually bring their kids there, and then they'll either have a code or a name to follow when they go there and make sure that they're picking up the right child. And there's a pickup drop-off area, and that's for like backpacks or strollers. So it's easier for people who are using the facilities to be able to navigate easily. And then I will finally go over the two different kinds of yurts I have. The first one being the 1-floor ADA yurt, which has a living space, a kitchen, a bedroom, and a bathroom. And then for the 2-floor yurt, this consists of a living area, kitchen, a half bath, and then 2 bedrooms upstairs with a balcony that connects in the front, and then a full bath. These are the well and LEED scorecards that I plan on using to enhance my design and sustainability and the overall wellness for the users of the space. This will be gone further into detail for my final presentation. These are my focus areas that I am currently working on. The spa, cafe, and butterfly garden, like I stated before, are my primary focus areas, but if I do have some extra time, I do plan on trying to get the other ones there done too. Now moving on to my mood boards, this is where the furniture can be seen. Currently, I'm redesigning my reception desk to be ADA compliant, but I plan on incorporating the following items on the slide for the finished product. So the accent wall up top, I plan on using that on the wall to the right. When you walk in, you see that beautiful bamboo accent wall with the plants. And then you would also be able to see the big tube glass enclosure for the butterflies to flow through, and people would be able to experience that as well. And I want to try to incorporate these colors as best as possible. In the lobby, there will also be an open gift shop area. So it's not going to be closed off. It's going to have some sort of fixture above that connects the front and back of it, which will be shown later on as well. For my cafe mood board, I wanted to do something along the same lines of color. I changed it just a little bit with the orange, but I wanted to make sure it's a very fun, vibrant area. I do want to do this fun wallpaper in the booths I have back here. And I also have some custom booth seating that I can show you guys if you'd like to see it. I do have my furniture plans as well, just in case. But this is my overall concept for this cafe. And then for my spa, I decided to show a perspective of the reception desk because I want to incorporate this design of a panel that's kind of transparent, but not quite transparent in the front over here. I think that would be very fun and cool, kind of like the overlapping of wings. And then in the salt cave, it's empty right now because it's gonna have this fun detailing, but I wanna include these chairs, and I just wanted to get your feedback on if you guys think these are like good ideas to put in there, or if I should go something more typical like these chairs. I'm almost done. My yoga studio mood board is showing the bar wall. So I feel like this is going to be such a good accent wall in this space, just because it's going to have these fun mirrors. I want to really incorporate like that curved line throughout the space. And then for my pop-up colors, it will be within the equipment. So the yoga mats could be colorful, or yoga balls or weights or whatever else they might need in that space. And then least almost last, my butterfly garden. So for this space, I want to keep it neutral as well, but I do want to add in the pops of color through the curtains or netting that I will be using. And that's to help prevent the butterflies from going into the building, because there is a portion that is covered when you go out into the butterfly garden. And I think creating that where it's not going to harm the butterflies, but people can still easily like walk through the space, it would be nice. And then I want to use that, like these curved chairs, to follow that concept idea of like the curvature in the butterfly wings. And I will also be using these solar LED lamps for the walkway. And then last mood board I have is my yurt. So for my concept idea for this, it was in the bottom right-hand corner. So I really was inspired by this image because it looks like a flower, and butterflies are pollinators. And I feel like if I place these yurts around the facility, that people who are traveling throughout them, they're spreading awareness, and that's like pollinating each other. So they're spreading that mental health awareness, which is what I want to be done. And if they're sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other, then that's the exact thing that this project should be doing. But I do want to kind of use these ideas with the colors and the queen bed, like just kind of this aesthetic. And then for the 2-floor yurt, they will have these hanging swings here. And then for the 1-floor yurt, I will just do some sort of swing that swings. Seating swing, sorry. And then for my questions, some questions I had while designing my space was, what connections can you see between my concept and design? Is the overall layout functional for the users? What, if any, program am I missing that can make my make the user stay more enjoyable? What other materials would help strengthen my concept connection? Are there any rooms I am missing for a more successful project? And how should I identify building 2, right now called short-term daycare? And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Great. Thank you so much, Becca. That was great. Nice one to start with. Why don't you go to your slide deck, and then we can open it up to your external thesis advisor, Sarah, to kick us off with some comments and feedback.
Perfect.
Hello. Wonderful job, Becca. Wow.
Thank you.
Even since we talked yesterday afternoon, there's been improvements. Woo! Love to see you added those key plans, just very helpful for context because you have so much program in your project and so many buildings associated with that. Very wonderful presentation. It flowed very well. And it really told the story. And I think that is very successful. The one comment I have regarding your presentation itself is you kind of glazed over your main building program. You went into detail about all your other buildings and spaces and listed out kind of what was in each one, but you skipped your main building, which is like the meat of your project. And I was kind of disappointed that you didn't walk us through the plan and say, here's the lobby, here's the cafe, here's the common area, here's the spa. Like, I think you just glossed over it a little bit too much, I think. And
Okay.
I would love to hear more about it.
Sorry, give me 1 second. Do you guys have a class in here?
Yeah.
When does it start? 5:30. Do you mind if I move? I'm just in a random room because I have class at 5:30 too.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Oh, good. You're in your laptop, so that's
Yeah.
okay. All right. Good. I liked all the keys too, Sarah. That was so helpful. I think some of the sometimes they just assume that we know that and we know where everything is, and sometimes it's our first time seeing the plans. So the key plans actually, it helps orientate you with all of it.
I was going to actually suggest that the slide before this was the bubble diagram, and there was a lot of like adjacencies and really important things you were trying to kind of quickly talk about. A lot going on, which is great, but it's also, you tried to pull out some things, and then you went right to the floor plan. And if there was a transition that was like halfway to the floor plan, like the bubbles appear on the floor plan, and we start to see the relationships, as the spaces are actually adjacent. You call out adjacencies with arrows here, but in the floor plan, it'd be great to see if they actually are adjacent to each other and how that might work. And then you go from that half bubble, half floor plan to the floor plan. It'll get us there, I think, a little bit better.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great. That's a great point. The other thing too that might help, I know sometimes when we do these digital presentations, and I didn't think of it until Paul mentioned that, sometimes if we do like the layering and you could have it sort of slide in and slide over and really use PowerPoint, as a digital presentation tool, instead of a stagnant. It could keep it moving. Right. Any other comments, feedback from our critics?
I think one of the things I just wanted to say, I think that it was really evident in all of the materials you were choosing and the furniture you were looking at, that the curves and the kind of awareness of the butterfly's wing in your kind of thinking. And I think that was great. I actually am really curious how some of that might come through in some of the floor plans. I mean, I know that the floor plans are right now just kind of like organizing program and thinking about where things go. And there's little moments where like the green curves come through, and there's moments where some of the walls are starting to do a little bit of that. And I think keep pushing that main idea through. Like every time you make a decision, think about, okay, how can I bring the butterfly's wing into this wall, this line, this door, whatever, every time you kind of face a decision and go back to your kind of main idea, then it's like just seamlessly throughout everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think your overall concept of the butterfly is definitely seen through, the floor plan itself and your material selections and things like that. And I agree with Paul with like, every decision you make in every aspect, having that kind of in the back of your mind. And I almost wonder if I realized in like your mood board, you kind of brought that bamboo like paneling wall in everywhere. And I almost wonder if it seems like you really love it. So I almost wonder if you maybe use a little less of it to keep it in your special moments, because if you're going to use it here and here and here and here and here, it kind of loses its special focal moments when you start putting it everywhere versus the reception right when you walk in. I know you mentioned like right when you walk in, you'll see it on the wall and it'll be that wow moment. And then, but if you start putting it everywhere, it's just expected and it doesn't become as special. So just think about, special pop places that you want to use it. And I think that could be super powerful.
Yeah. Oops. Did she get bumped out? Oh no, there you are. Okay.
I did get bumped out. I was like, what happened? I was like, everything froze.
Okay. Okay.
Did you want
were
me to?
were you able to hear Ashley's comments? Oh, see, this is another reason why I'm glad we're doing it remote, because CVPA has are you in CVPA? It has horrible internet access. Yeah.
It does. I'm like in the lobby too, and I'm like trying to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you able to hear?
I was not able to hear the rest of Ashley's comments. I'm so sorry.
Well, we are going to have it on, it is recorded, so you'll have it
Perfect.
documented.
Thank you.
Was there any other comments? I'm just going to add one. Becca, I think you did a great job. I'm really concerned you're trying to do too much. And it goes back to, like, what are you going to, what can you do? What can you do well? And then get to that level of detail that they all just shared with you. Because instead of doing the whole thing and have it, I'd rather see your 3 focus points designed that are just everything is thought about with really, meaningful decisions and thoughtful process. So I want to emphasize again, more is not always the best.
Okay, I will definitely take that into consideration when I'm
that's
designing
what you
that.
said last time and ignored me.
They're my
But
backups.
I know. I don't know. We could talk offline, and I feel like you're so excited and the project's beautiful. And I just want to see the outcome be just as beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for all the comments and feedback too. I really do appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much, Becca. All
I have
right.
to jump off, but thank you.
All right. Pop back in after your class if you have a chance. Morgan.
Hello. All right.
You should be, are you all set to, just want to make sure the settings are right. It's been a little funky.
I don't know. It's
Well, that's intentionally why I broke it up into 3 different Zoom links, because sometimes if you do the long one, all right, you're good. I'm gonna,
Where is it? Where's my mouse? Okay, sorry. I lost my mouse between my 2 screens. All right. So my project is called the Heritage Cultural Center. As you can see in the center of the screen, there's this oculus that inverts an ocean and a sky. And why I put this here is I really liked it and I thought it'd be a really cool sign for a heritage building for like kind of like a globe aspect to light up. And then I just wanted to start by introducing myself. I'm Morgan Palm, and my internal advisor and teacher or professor is Stephanie, and my external advisor is Paul from Cambridge 7. Just a little bit of history of why I chose to do a cultural center. I moved up to Boston to work at a travel agency pre-COVID. COVID happened, and as we know, the travel industry went away, ceased to happen for a couple years, and therefore I was laid off. And at that point, I was reconsidering my life. I spoke with Rose, and here I am 4 years later. And traveling has been such a big part of my life, and learning about cultures that I want to have that option to share with others who do not have that ability to travel. My location is at the riverfront in Fall River. At this time, they are tearing down the whole location to have a new revitalization in this area. I chose this area because of the demographics, and this is sort of where I developed who my client is going to be. And I will touch on that for later on in my presentation. I also want to hint on the transportation aspect. I am doing LEED as my sustainability aspect, and part of LEED, you need to have it close to public transportation. The new revitalization in Fall River will have a MBTA train stop. And then as you can see on the right map, there is a bus routes that go from Fall River to New Bedford also. The existing conditions of this area, as I said, it's completely torn down, so everything is being developed from the dirt up. It's in between the north and south routes of Route 79, between the Braga Bridge and the Somerset Bridge. I'm not sure what that bridge is called. And my building will be on one of the lands being developed. My client, as I stated a little bit ago, are those who do not have the opportunity to travel. As we all know, travel is a luxury, and not everybody has that aspect or that money to have the ability to do this. So having that option, would love to have others learn of the cultures around the world. So in my project, I want to bring the cultures to them. I want to have cultures from all aspects, say Africa, India, Europe, anywhere that is somewhere that's not Fall River. Some of the people that will be using this building are the world community, so those coming to Fall River and those in Fall River or the surrounding areas. Schools in the local area. I would hoped the center would be a good resource for them and help them teach some of their lessons or as a extension of their lessons. Family members that are either grandparents and grandchildren, parents and children, older siblings and bringing their younger siblings here, all having a chance to enjoy this area, and as well as the employees that are going to be there. A few of my design problems is I'm taking an existing building and moving it to this area. So my existing building is currently in Boston and I'm gonna have it relocated in Fall River. This building is used as an event space. So as the first picture on top shows, it's a large empty building. Theoretically, that seemed like a great idea. But further developing my design, one, you don't realize how large it is. And then two, it's also a round building. So that has its own design problems in that as well. Since it is an older building, I will need to bring everything up to code. One for LEED, two for accessibility, and for universal design, as well, as that is an important aspect since I am involving all aspects of the community. I additionally am adding additional floors, so this large space with large ceilings will have multi-floors instead of just one. My concept is wind. Since my building is a cultural center, I tried to be very generic in my concept so that I'm not geared towards one culture or the other and leaving one out while I'm viewing another. So I chose to go with wind. My thought process was this: wind, the Pocahontas song, can you paint with all the colors of the wind? And then through that brought me to movement across the world. I watched something on National Geographic where this gentleman was talking about finding dirt that is originally from the Appalachian Mountains out west. And that just shows how powerful wind is at moving things across the world. And this is sort of the aspect that I've taken into designing my cultural center, because cultures are not just one specific place. People are moving around the world constantly and sharing what they bring from their community to a different community. So just as wind is moving across the world, so are people and their culture. These are just some inspirational photos that I have used for my design. On the top left corner are the Antelope Canyon, which is what I'm really focusing a lot of my architectural details on, how wind can shape stone and mountain. It's just such a powerful force. And then I chose to go with words that describe what I want my design to feel like: organic, space, breath, layering, softness, energy, light, movement, and flexibility. A real focus of my design also, since it is focusing on all cultures of the world, is flexibility. So I need to have the aspect of where I can have my design change when different exhibits come through my space. Another inspiration present study that I have chosen was Zaha Hadid, because of her organic use in her architecture. Seeing how the wave and the movement of the line really inspired me in how I want the movement and wayfinding throughout my building to feel. Taking all those inspiration pictures, I went and developed my partie. As I was developing my partie, I was thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to make this organic shape? So while I was home celebrating my grandpa's 90th birthday, I got my brother and my cousin to help me. As they threw a sheet off the porch, I stood underneath and took pictures and was able to develop these organic shapes from the sheet flying or floating down with the wind pressing it up. My grandma did get a call asking if we were losing our minds, though. And then from there, I built my partie and how I want it to have the organic shapes and kind of how I want the walls to feel, the pathways to feel throughout my building. Moving on, my primary finishes, I haven't decided on exactly what I want to use. So I just put an assortment of wall coverings and flooring down. The wall coverings I'm starting to think of sustainability purposes. So a lot of them are PVC free. They are also vinyl for durability because they will be in a building where large amount of people will be in there. My color scheme I built from thinking of just all the colors that you could find in the world and kind of narrowing it down to what you see here. And then touching more on my LEED aspect, on the right, you'll see my LEED checklist. These are the categories that I hope that my building will have throughout. And then on the left, you'll see the regional priority credits that I can obtain through having my building in Fall River. So some of aspects I'm going to use are rainwater management, and through some aspects that I've developed through a previous project that I'm combining with this project, where we have a garden that will contribute to the cooking classes. That will be one of my focus areas, and that has drip irrigation, and that is just an example of how I'm going to use rainwater management. Then moving on to codes, I have put my overall square footage of the building is 106,898 square feet. When realizing this, I kind of had a reality check of how big my building was. And going through, I hit my major areas such as my lobby, my performance area, offices, conference, dance classes, cooking classes, and then my interactive spaces. And this is just an extension of that. And then going into my development of my design, I started with a stacking diagram. On the basement level, which is not going to be in focus for this, but I did want to show it, is going to be mainly storage and machinery. And then going up, I have the lobby and the performance room, and which will be the multi-purpose area, are two of my other focus areas. And then the cooking class will be on the second floor, and my interactive class or interactive space, which will be a focus area, on the third floor, which will be the entire floor. And this is just another way to show my stacking diagram, but with a section cut, kind of showing the development from that with it in the model. As you can see, the space on top is an interactive, on the third floor is the interactive space, and then moving down, I have the restaurant, cooking classes, and art classes. Then the lobby, performance area, and then the back of house, and then storage mechanical. This also gives a nice view of one of the focus areas of the performance area, how it's recessed down. And then further developing this, you'll see my block diagram starting from the right side, which is the entrance. And I don't know if you can see my mouse. Going in, you have your coat and your ticket counter, and then the lobby area. And then moving in from the lobby area, you can find the multi-purpose use stage, and then the gift shop and rev down room at the bottom of the screen, and then restrooms and by the bike storage, which is another LEED credit that I am using. And then this gallery wall right here is separating the front of house and the back of house area, where you'll have your offices, and then the freight elevators. And then this exit, or this egress down here, is a ramp down to the basement area, where things such that are using for the performances or the exhibitions or the gallery wall can be stored and switched out. And then this helps show some of my wayfinding from my concept, as you can see, when moving through and curving around the building in different directions, just to help develop that idea. And then going in and further developing my first floor. Some of things have changed from the block diagram. I've had my 2 restrooms up here and then moved the bike and shower room towards the back of house. And then I have further developed down here the rev down rooms and breastfeeding room. I added those to help with universal design, and since it's going to be a family oriented space, I do want to have that room available for those moms that need that extra quiet space to go have their time. And then I have a dressing room right here, right off the performance area for those. Say you have a flamenco dancer performing from Spain and they need to change into their flamenco dress, and have that right off here from the performance area. Here's my furniture plan for the first floor. Since it is a large space, I have seating area right up at the front. Most of my first floor space does lend to the performance area. And then my focus area on the first floor is the performance space in the lobby. I just wanted to give a better view of that and the view of the recess down into the stage area. Moving on to the second floor, you have your options of using the stairs as egress and then the elevators right here. And then my main focus area on this floor will be the cooking class right here. And then to help develop my concept, you can see where the wayfinding from the elevators can move through the building. And then the stairs. And this goes further into the codes on each floor. This is my second floor. I also want to point out on my second floor, as you come through, and there's this hallway between the dance classes and the cooking classes. And here's a ramp from the second to the third floor. And through here, there will be kind of like a tunnel that you could find in Antelope Canyon where the walls mean you can go through back into the art class areas. And then my furniture plan for my second floor. I have put a blue dot just to show that these are my focus areas. And then moving on to my third floor. This floor is going to be taken up by the interactive space. And then I have developed my wayfinding through here. It looks a little crazier, but it's still showing the circular path of the wind moving up the ramp into the space. And I just wanted to kind of flow with the circle route of the top floor. And then here is my codes, my code for the third floor. And then as you can see, the interactive space has developed further with restrooms over here and then lockers over here and the elevator. So, and then here's my furniture plan. I have kind of just spaced out the important aspects because I still need to fully develop these. So one of my interactive spaces right here is going to be kind of like a planetarium, and the main object in here is going to be the planetarium camera or projector. And then moving here, these are tables where computers can be, or in a screen where you can have people come and reach out and communicate with people across the world, via Zoom or a chat, or have your class come and do that as well. And then another interactive space is having a ski simulator. And in my example, I am using it as a dog sled simulator. So say you had a Nordic country come and one aspect of their culture is how they get around is by dog sleds. This way you could have a video of dog sleds while the person moves as if they're controlling the sled. And then in the center of my interactive space, I want to have a globe that's interactive where you can touch a screen and things pop up. This example is from the Smithsonian. And this is where this is going to develop a little further here. And then just breaking down some of the interactive spaces that I explained on the previous slide. As you can see, the dog sleds as the like ski simulator, and then to go with that Nordic culture, the Northern Lights, where that could be seen in the planetarium projecting up. And with these two instances, the key of flexibility comes into this with the technology. So say you have another culture come in, the projection from the planetarium can change to what needs to fit with that culture, instead of Northern Lights to something else. And the same with the simulator where it has dog sledding, you can have something else where the person is doing a different active simulation with the video up there. And the key to flexibility in that is through the technology and the screenings of that. And with the cross-cultural communication, that's just flexible where say you reach out with another cultural center across the world and see if you could develop a time where you can have people talking to each other. And then this is a 3D view of my entire building. Some questions oh gosh. Oh. Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. I don't know what happened. Some questions I do have is trying to come up with more interactive ideas that are also flexible that can change in a space without too much trouble or hassle or too many things whilst changing this and that. So specific to rooms. And any other responses that you have?
Thank you, Morgan. That was my way of cutting you off.
Oh, click it.
No, I'm joking. Go to your slide deck. Go to your slide deck. If you can.
I don't know.
Nice presentation. And then
my brain was like all over the place. I was like, I don't know if I can.
If you can't, that's okay. I think it goes on the bottom with that one.
No.
But let's see. Or maybe if you just stop your presentation mode, I think it does it. We'll open it up for comments and questions, and we'll start with Paul, your external thesis advisor.
Maybe if I.
Yeah, I think, well, I think you're doing a great job. You're tackling a lot, which I think with a big building, as you realized, it comes with a lot. I think your concept is really kind of rich, and I think it does, integrate really well with the content that you're working with, like with what you're doing. And I think I kind of appreciate that connection. And I think you're, allowing that connection to really drive everything, I think will be really could be really successful. I think one of the things, when you went through your process of the floor plans, you kind of had like the old floor plan, and then you had your kind of code summary floor plan. But I think when we saw that update, we saw, not only did we see the diagram of how the kind of wind moves through the space or the visitors move through the space, you then saw how the walls started to be affected by that. You started to imagine those canyon surfaces or the windswept things around you as you move through the space. And I thought that was really great. So I thought, doing more of that, making sure that that main idea is always present in what you're thinking about. I think we could, when you get to those spaces, some of those classrooms and things like that in the lower levels, it might be good to start thinking about some of those materials and some of the surfaces and what is really going to address or show that or illustrate that kind of windswept feeling and look, what kind of colors and textures. And then I think what you have is a really interesting, different challenge when you get to the top floor, because at the top floor, you're really trying to create a canvas for these changing experiences. And I think there's two things you have to do here. One is you have to do these things, which is what you're doing. You have to design these interactives or these moments that make things really special, or how that space might be something that changes, whether it's changing from the dog sled to then a train and through the middle of, you know, a city or something. And so those different activities. I also think that you still have to put a room around it. You still have to think about that space around it. So the materials that go into that, it may not be the same as the materials you have downstairs, like the windswept curvy canyon walls. Up here, it might be more about creating a canvas for whatever culture is coming into that, you know, into that space. And so I could see the textures being muted and the colors being very like subtle, so that when you change the lighting or when you add a big piece of media, then everything starts to take on that design of that exhibit, design of that interactive, like whatever, you know, if this screen is a dog sled screen and it's glowing, let the walls and the ceilings and the floors all take on that color and that movement, and let it be, you know, over consumed by that activity. But you still have to design that. You still have to think about what those materials are, and you still have to think about designing that room around it. You know, maybe these curved walls up here aren't going to be as flexible as you can imagine. Somebody coming in to put stuff on the walls to decorate or to kind of transform that space. Those walls might not need to be kind of driven by the wind concept. They might need to be driven by this idea of being this canvas for a culture that's coming in and taking over that space. So you really have kind of two things to worry about. Downstairs, you have, you know, the cultural center and kind of setting up that space. Then upstairs, you gotta set up a canvas for other people to then come in and change that space. So it's really kind of two projects in one, which is, it can be kind of great. So I think I think this idea that bringing cultures to a place like this, offering a space like this that does totally transform, that changes as cultures change or people change, it can be really great. Slightly different design problem, but it can still be really successfully done. So.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. Any other comments or feedback?
I have a few things I want to add. Hi, Morgan.
Hi.
So like Paul, I really enjoy your concept of the wind. And it got me thinking when you were talking about it being a cultural center, really reinforcing ideas of what binds people's culture rather than what makes them different. So I urge you to kind of try and take it in that direction. I think back to a couple of years ago, the IAD fashion show, the rituals of death that we did, and how that was a cross-cultural experience, and that was kind of a study on how multiple cultures dealing with the same thing that we all go through. Maybe I know that is a morbid example, but you can look at it in a way that's like, you know, refreshing and new and super colorful. So I think on the lower floors, I think when you think about materiality, that's going to be super important in a different way, and incorporating, you know, textures, textiles, patterns, things that are reminiscent of certain cultures, and doing it in a way where it doesn't feel like it's just an explosion of, you know, just being really meaningful with where you're including these types of moments, and how you're dividing those spaces up, because you don't want it to feel like a maze, because you have a really huge space. So that wayfinding is super important. I just feel like in some areas, just think about how you would experience walking through that space. Like, is there an awkward dead corner? Is there, you know, because there's a lot of rooms around the perimeter here. So there's not a lot of access to natural light as far as I can tell. So that's something to think about. And I think you you know, using the wind, it's a really good opportunity for you to create unique ways of wayfinding and creating easy paths for people to take to really know where they're going, because you don't want people to get lost in their space.
Yeah, I'm in the process of developing that, and it's like I think it's explained to Paul and Stephanie. It's like all crazy in here, and then like getting the time to put it out there, and like going just agreeing with you is like having it where people come through and it not be made, just kind of have like this like kind of be its own space, but kind of blocked a little bit from the bathrooms and stuff is.
Well, maybe you look at precedent studies that aren't necessarily exactly a cultural center, but huge spaces that deal with foot traffic. So I think of like conventions or Epcot, even a place that has, you know, shows a ton of different cultures in one spot, and how they break those areas up in a way that's like easy for people to navigate, but also gives each moment you know, its own special feature of some kind. And then trying to find a through line to kind of build off of. And then I think your color palette from the imagery that you were pulling, the page with all the words that you had, was really nice. So I would love to see some of those colors be pulled through your materiality, because I didn't, because this is really bright, and this I feel like you can really take cues from. I would encourage you to just look at texture, because when I think about culture, and I think about like textiles, you know, how is that done differently? So you can really play with that. But overall, I think it was a very nice thought out presentation. So congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was like a lot of my, as Paul was saying, it's like two different projects or concepts in one, and that's been a lot of where my brain's been kind of like intertwining, messing around, trying to figure out the best way to show what I'm seeing in my brain to everyone else.
Yeah, I just got to synthesize a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
I think something too that could be cool to think about as you further your design is like how you kind of started off with like you made your partie diagram because you were laying under a sheet and you were looking up, instead of necessarily curving all your walls. And you know, like Mike kind of touched on, like just being aware of all your dead space and stuff. Maybe think about it up, you know, coming from the ceiling and dropping different soffits, and it was, you know, the blanket was floating in the air and it went like this, and but you were looking up at it. And that can also kind of touch upon what Mike was kind of saying with like wayfinding and such. So just, it doesn't always have to be, because I saw on maybe one of your floors, like your bathrooms had a ton of curvy walls. And I think, you know, once it came down to it and you actually started laying them out, you would realize that's really kind of a challenge to do in bathrooms and offices and just smaller spaces, like you kind of had it. So kind of looking at it maybe from like soffits and ceilings and different levels, I think could be powerful too, because you can tie it back to that partie diagram of where you started. You were under the blanket and it was, you know, making all these shapes above you.
That was like you said, it was, I had blocked it off, or like had it in blocks when I was developing it, and then needed to show the concept more, and then having curved walls is harder, and trying to find that balance of where it's shown but realistically works with the construction of it is where I'm trying to find that fine line right now.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a great, you've received great feedback so far. What a wonderful thing to do, just to step away for maybe a day and invert your whole thinking. I mean, who knows what's going to come out of that. It was interesting when you were showing some of the imagery and the wind. I had like this vision of me back in the Middle East, and it had just rained, and we walked the desert and we picked desert roses, and it only happens after it rains because it moves. And I'm like, I wanted to bring it in and show you. I don't know where it is right now, but I'm going to have to find it. But it's something that was cultural, and it only happens in a moment in time, and it happens from the movement of the wind. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of opportunities, and also to look at simplicity. I mean, I think you can definitely have that complex layering of multiple concepts happening concurrently with a little bit of sophistication in there. Anybody else want to chime in? Give more to Morgan, just what she needs, after I sent her a text and tried to cut her off. I know. Be careful that you're the same situation as Becca. You don't want to do too much, and you want to be thoughtful about what you're going to pick to move forward, and just work with your advisors to really hone in on making a powerful statement with the spaces you select.
As Stephanie will say, I always try to do too much.
I know. Yeah, and it's you want, this really isn't the place to do it. This is the place to do quality work, and you want it to represent your best, and quantity isn't always going to be it here. Thank you, Morgan.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone. I can't wait to take y'all's feedback and develop it further.
All right. Let's see. We'll stop sharing, and then we're going to go to Brianna.
All right. Can everybody see?
You're a little quiet, Brianna. Make sure your mic's up.
Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Brianna Wetherbee, and my thesis is A New Lease on Life from a Historic Structure to Flexible Workspace. So as I mentioned, my name is Brianna. I actually started as a psychology major. However, I started feeling unsatisfied with the level of human intervention, and I knew there was more I could do. So after finding this program, I fell in love with it, and I specifically really fell in love with the research portion of it. And so as you'll see from this presentation, it is very research heavy, but for good reason, and every decision has something to back it up. And then just a shout out to Rose. She's also very research oriented, and she's really helped me a lot with this project, especially the Part T. So I can't wait for you guys to see that. And then special thanks to my external advisor, Ashley Sayers. She's been especially helpful in helping me create this like wellness story that I'm about to share with you. And I'm just very excited to share that process with everybody. And so my problem is the rise of freelancing and the need for third spaces. So what I've come up with is a co-working office, but not everybody knows what a co-working office is, so I'll just quickly describe that. It's just a new way for people to work. It's a third space. People can come in. It can be firms, it can be single employees, freelancers, students, you name it. And so it's a whole new experience because you're exposed to a whole different diverse group of people. You're going to get new feedback. You're going to make new connections, whether that be personal or work. And they want people to stay there all day. And as you'll see, this co-working office also has a lot of amenities and perks. And specifically, this project is going to address historic preservation, adaptive reuse, sustainability. I'm going to be using well and fit well, community, human scale, and the economic benefits of paying attention to people and using a holistic approach. And I wanted to just include this little bit of research that I had found, giving people's motivations to work at a co-working space. And as you can see, as I've highlighted here, most of the people are talking about that social interaction and wanting to network and get out of their shell and talk to people. So that, along with flexibility, is a very integral part of this project. Client information, who, why, and how. So as I mentioned, co-working spaces aren't just for freelancers. A lot of people are self-employed, firms, extended workers. I myself am a freelancer, which is why I've been particularly interested in this project. But I'm also interested in retail, and there is a Etsy pop-up shop in this co-working space. So I wanted to use this project to try a different sector that I've never really fully delved into. And I thought it would just be something new, just a new challenge for me. And user values, people going into co-working spaces, as mentioned, value that small talk and being able to speak to new people. Work benefits would be networking, productivity, ability to focus better, and then personal benefits, you might make a friend. So my site is in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia specifically, and I'll explain why. So with co-working spaces, there's specific industries that seem to be more aware of them and using them. So what I did is I looked at the whole US and cities and tried to find which cities had the most investment in those industries, but also people moving to those areas specifically for those sectors. And going along with that density and adjacencies, Philadelphia being so close to New York has actually become a real huge hub for financial management and tech. And then historic charm, I again wanted to work on historic preservation since that's not something that I had never touched. And I had come to find that Philadelphia was the first capital of the United States. They have numerous monuments, museums. There, you'll see once we get to the building, but there's definitely a lot of charm to go around. So 2133 Arch Street, it is a 35,000 square foot building. It is a French Renaissance style building. The inside has been remodeled into a modern office, so it is all completely white in there. So what I will intend to do once we get further into the project is try to bring some of those historic elements back into the interior of the space. And then I just wrote some adjacencies down. So there's other office buildings on the street, museums, green spaces, more modern historic houses, and then some luxury high rises. And then as you can see at the top floor, 360-degree views, and then there's an atrium in the center. As mentioned, the atrium, and then this is just showing some of how they had remodeled and how the building sits currently. So design concept. So when it came to co-working space, the main word I had flying around in my head was networking. And I've always been interested in nature and biophilia, so that's something that was going to happen in my project anyways. But I was really drawn to all these kind of like pictures of things that are branching out. They're integrated together, but they're still their own thing. And I thought it was really interesting because we can have this fluidity and motion, diversity, but at the same time, we're also very intertwined. And so refraction and entanglement is what I'm calling it. And it's just about how we become interlaced and interwoven with one another. And I think that really embodies a co-working office. So my first approach, I simply just tried to get the thoughts out. I hadn't looked at anything yet. So as you'll see, I had a lot of the co-working and community spaces in the back of the building. However, I did, after doing a sun study, find that that back wall does not have a single window. So that wasn't the best, and you'll see that we kind of switched that as we developed it. So potential users, I did mention the variety, but I wanted to also show how they might be using the space and circulating throughout, which will also tie into my party diagram. But for the most part, all 4 of these different groups of users that I've just kind of highlighted, they are mainly going to be in the community space, the co-working space, in the offices, meeting rooms, and then in the gym and kitchen and dining area. So for my party diagram, I wanted to take those circulation paths from my first set of bubbles and make that into 3D. So by doing this, I was able to, again, take a little bit of a closer look at the sun and how that was really going to affect the atrium and where I was going to be placing these rooms. Because if you're coming to a co-working office, most of the time you're probably going to be going to those private offices or the co-working or hot desk space. So those were going to be the most important spaces to get that natural daylight. And then, so shifting gears into my blocking diagrams, we took, as I said, a better look at the solar. And I also wanted to make sure I was dealing with vertical noise pollution. And so, as you'll notice, for the most part, I tried really hard to stack things properly on top of one another. So say the community space wasn't on top of a small office. I didn't want any interference, and I wanted to really focus on acoustics in the space. And so on the left is the first floor. When you first come in, you have the community space to your left and the Etsy pop-up shop to your right, which does lead into a little activity area. So it's kind of a maker space. And then if you go straight in, the atrium actually serves as our reception, gives us a little bit more space. And at first, I had been really struggling with the floor plan just because that atrium was tripping me up. It was in the middle. It was causing all the hallways to not be ADA. It was really just messing with everything. And Ashley gave me the great idea just to remember, like, we can change the floor plates. We can mess with the shape of the atrium. And at first, I wasn't really into that idea. I was really kind of rigid about it. But as we kind of took a look at my party diagrams and the concept and going back over how we really wanted those organic shapes to play into the space and that like networking to come through, it ended up being the right choice. And so going to the third and fourth floor, this is where we transition from more of those public spaces like community and the collab spaces to more of those private offices, meeting rooms, the phone booths. So the first two floors are really those loud public areas, and then the top two floors are for those private areas. But on the fourth floor, there is a gym, yoga studio, and massage therapy that is open to the public, just as a way to get them engaged with the space. And maybe they come up, they see something, they'll be interested. As we said, we want to keep them in there for a lot longer. And so where I'm at now with my preliminary construction floor plan, it's the same as that blocking diagram that you see. But as I said, the iterations, it was a long way from start to finish. But when we come into the space, I made a point in the atrium on all 4 floors to pull some of the walls out to add a little bit of privacy to some of the spaces, because on the 3rd and 4th floor, that's where there was having some like open to private offices. And I didn't want that noise that was coming from the atrium to interfere or get in the way. So what I did is I just added a little bit more of the walls, and then we're going to be using a lot of acoustic materials. And then this is the 3rd and 4th floor. This is where you'll see the shift in the floor plate in the atrium section. And so what is happening here is that the 2nd and 3rd floor are that more like softer curve, and that 4th floor has more of a dramatic curve that kind of overshadows the 2nd and 3rd. So when you're in the atrium, it's kind of layered over one another. And so as I was just kind of getting into my focus areas, I just wanted to do a sketch to get some of my ideas out. And as you'll see here, when we're looking into the space, I was going to keep that circular shape in mind. So having the reception desk reflect that just seemed like the right decision for me. And then I wanted, because the atrium space is so big and I have that 4th floor plate coming over and just having like cutting off that space, I found that it might be a really cool idea and nice spot for some sort of either arts installation or some sort of chandelier, something with lights that could be our little sparkle. So I was just trying to think through those, how can we make an impression in that atrium, just because when do you get a chance like this to make an atrium a reception? And so going into the finishes and materials, I opted for a more neutral color palette just to go with the kind of nature theme I was going for. And so even with the chairs, you'll see that very soft feminine curve, soft materials. In the back here, along this curtain wall, it's actually a tiered seating area that one just offers more space, but it's not that kind of lounge seating that's going to leave them staying in the lobby, and it'll get them moving, which one goes for the sustainability, but it gets them interested in the space. So they'll have more interest in moving about the space. And then also in between the elevators, there were balconies that came and looked over into the atrium. So what I did is on the second and third floor, I actually closed that off and it gave me access to a new wall. And so what I did is I put up a vegetation wall, one for air infiltration, and then just giving people access to nature. And then I wanted to just include some inspiration pictures since this is still in the preliminary phases. So this is just kind of that large moment that I'm trying to get to. And I think I'm almost there, but I think it's definitely going to come down to some more architectural features. And then I did do some preliminary renderings just to show that floor plate that staggers in the atrium. And then going into the enlarged furniture plan for my community space, I have, again, more of that rounded furniture. I have some translucent pieces that kind of ties back to that movement, that reflectivity. And then I'm also using some acoustic panels to buffer in between the zones. So people can have their little groupings, but they're not going to be overrun by the people next to them having a conversation. And then going into the third space, my co-working space, the star of the show. So in this space, since we are trying to focus so heavily on flexibility, I had found a really good desk that actually offers the choice for you to sit down. They have a little collab space on the end of it. It's actually customizable too, so you can add other portions to it. And I thought that would be the perfect piece to kind of have there. So at any point you can interchange these pieces, and it just offers a little bit more flexibility with the different types of seating as well. And then I have, again, the steel case seating, the airlock lift tables, just to encourage some movement. And then here's just a quick little rendering from that space. And then I did have some more finishes that I didn't get to put on, so I just wanted to show the rest of what I was thinking. And then going back to the well and fit well for air, the plant wall for air infiltration and nature, light, having that daylight in the atrium helps with circadian rhythm and exposure to the natural daylight. Movement using the ergonomic workstations, having an active building, and providing opportunities for physical activity. For mind, having mental health awareness, having a massage parlor, just giving opportunities for you to take a step back and relax within this third space. And then for materials, material optimization, and then transparency with materials, ingredients, and then for sound, using acoustic materials and reducing background noise. And then just one more atrium rendering with the plant wall. And then if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Brianna. Do you want to do your stack? Can you do that? And then perfect. and then we'll open it up and let Ashley start.
Great. Awesome. I think this whole presentation was great and really came together from the last time we met. So good job on that. And I loved all those different sun studies that you did. I think bringing in the sun studies that you did, you know, starting even just with the Partee diagram and realizing how important the sun will be, because, you know, 3 sides of your building do have so much windows and natural light. Seeing how the sun works throughout the day and strategically placing everything, I think has really come together and is really thought out. And you know, I know you weren't super thrilled with like changing the atrium, but I think once we kind of tied it back to the Partee, tied it back to the concept, and you're realizing, you know, you were gaining space where in certain areas that you didn't realize you needed, or, you know, you could cut back some spaces, I think has been super helpful. And I just think it's been really well thought out. I know before you were kind of big picture and didn't really know where you wanted to go. And I think once you kind of took that step back and realized what you really wanted to focus on for your focal areas, I think it has just come leaps and bounds from where it was even just a few weeks ago. And I think it's really starting to come together.
Yeah.
Great job, Brianna. I just wanted to say, loved your presentation. I loved your concept. I thought that was really unique and interesting. And I like how you've modified the atrium to kind of, yeah, tie in that Partee and tie in that entanglement and that refraction ideas. I'd love to see that, I think, a little bit more in your color palette as you start to develop that further. Because those inspiration images on your concept slide are really fun and bold and vibrant, and just, I don't know, to me, they encouraged excitement and movement, and were really fun. So I'd like to see that continue on. I thought it was really great how you were really thinking of the vertical stacking of your program elements and the acoustical implications of the program. So that was, I think, is very successful. And one thing I would challenge you on is, now that you've kind of expanded your atrium and pushed and pulled with the floor plate layout, it might be interesting to think about some vertical connection or like a communicating stair between parts of that to encourage that the celebration of this atrium. And I can just go up a floor from you know, from like in the atrium, right, and not have to go back to the elevator or go back to the stairwells or etc., and which obviously aligns itself with Fitwell and Wells principles, as you know. So great job.
Awesome, thank you.
I actually had some thinking that aligned with what Sarah just mentioned, and so I'll jump in. But I think you know, you talked a little bit in the beginning about this entanglement, but also about the kind of little things between the different programs, like the connections between them, the gathering and the things like that. And so I started to hear in all this that you were talking a lot about making these connections, making connections between people using different spaces, people that are freelancers, people that are private, different companies, and but making connections and kind of offering that as a benefit. So I started seeing, when you started doing the implementations, or when you started modifying the atrium, I was like, oh my God, these are the connections. Like, this is where you need to have this like curving walkway that connects that space to this space. And so it's like you created these shortcuts for these people that might not have gone all the way around the atrium to go to that other space. But you kind of, so I was kind of thinking it'd be really great to kind of take a look at those curves. Sarah, I think your comment about potentially connecting vertically is awesome. I think that's really interesting. But making those connections really purposeful would be really interesting. So thinking about showing some diagrams that show, when you curve that floor plate into the atrium, what might you actually be connecting? Are you connecting the right 2 things? Should that curve actually be on the other side? Should you be connecting these 2 things? And so thinking about how those curves in that atrium, I think the renderings of the atrium and the light in there was great. I think you're like definitely sculpting that space, and it's really starting to take shape. And I think being really meaningful with it's going to be really important. Not just that it looks really cool, right? Because it does, but I think making sure that you are also kind of say, hey, look at this diagram, and this is why this curve needs to be here. It's connecting this to this, and this is, you know, then you have these like really good reasons for all those cool curves and things in the atrium. So I thought that one other thing was just the kind of, you're kind of connecting the past to the present too. Like you're connecting this historic building, right, to this like new thing, this, from historic structure to flexible workspace. And so I really kind of started to want to see your moves being like juxtaposed over the old buildings moves, where there is the orthogonal structure and there's kind of the building is set up in a way, but now you have these curved bridges and you have these curved stairs and you have these curved skylight. Like I imagine like you having this diagram of these, like what you're going to do is going to be these curvy new things in this old rigid building, and seeing how those two things can kind of start to relate and kind of play off one another, I think could be really fascinating.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
I think going off of that, you could also think about how can you even reclaim parts of the building and incorporate it into the design and give it a whole new life. Are there moments from that, or are there moments from like the materials that you choose or the furniture look that you choose? Do you pick a couple pieces of furniture that are maybe modern versions of whatever, I forget what you said, the era that the facade came from, but I remember it being something like French. Maybe you pull from that and incorporate it in a way to kind of keep that through line happening. But I wanted to commend you on your organization. I felt like your presentation was very clear and it brought me through your process. I don't think I really got lost anywhere. I think your graphics are very clear and representational of what you're trying to do. And you can tell, like you said in the beginning, it's very research focused. And I think it'll inform a really nice design in the end. So good job. And I think you could use more color. I think that there's a lot of slides in a row where there's kind of just like words and text. And then we hit that, bam, right on that concept page. And then you shrunk it down a little bit. So bring it up, make it the whole page. And then try and take the cues from those colors that you're pulling in and keep it in your whole presentation somehow.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Anyone else? All right. I think we gave Brianna a lot to think about. It certainly has come a long way since I've seen it. Good job, Brianna.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we have Mikaila.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes, good.
Awesome.
All right, because you had two on, so we'll make sure we can hear and we can see. And Monica's here. I saw her log in, but I think she's teaching at the same time, right? How are you doing that, Monica? Maybe her whole class is watching. It's the freshmen. We just scared a whole cohort.
How do I get to the presentation button if the Zoom is covering it?
It's all the way down.
To this one.
Can you see it? No?
There's another one, luckily.
Up top. There you go. You got it. You guys know better than me. Okay.
All right. Hi, my name is Mikaila Rastella, and this is my midterm thesis presentation on natural disaster resilient homes. I worked alongside with my internal thesis advisor, Rose, and my external thesis advisor, Monica Johnson. Rose is our program coordinator, who has also written a book that we use for our curriculum. I was inspired by one of the sections on resilient design, and within that book, Monica Johnson is featured due to her own thesis that was on natural disaster relief housing. And Monica works here at UMass Dartmouth, and I had the pleasure of having her as a teacher my freshman year. And personally, as someone who has always lived in the New England area, I appreciate how we get all 4 of the seasons and our constantly changing weather. And being so fascinated about nature, I recognize its beauty, but also the devastation that it can cause. So the need for resilient homes. The United States geographically is one of the most diverse countries in the world because we have 5 different climate types. So we get almost all the natural disasters that you can think of. And a lot of the majority of dense populations are actually on the coast, which is normally most at risk for natural disasters. This legend that I have here is for all natural disasters, nothing in particular. But natural disasters are going to be increasing in frequency, and those are the ones that I tried to focus on, such as hurricanes, tornadoes, and wildfires that will be accelerating due to climate change. And I just find this important because even as of 2023, there was $92.9 billion in damages due to natural disasters around the country. So the site that I chose was Florida. Southern Florida has a relatively high to a very high risk of hurricanes, tornadoes, and wildfires, not just exclusively one of them. When an area is in a high threat of these disasters, it's super important to design the homes to be as resilient to as many of these as possible. And with it on the rise, and especially as the sea temperatures get warmer, and being right by the Gulf of Mexico, the hurricanes will continue to grow in severity, which already caused mass destruction. And I specifically picked the Miami-Dade County because it's not only the most at risk for hurricanes in the country, but it faces this variety of natural disasters. And I also picked an area that is advertised to be a growing development area. So there are no houses there. Everything's going to have to be cleared out. But I find it important that as we're building houses in an area that we might not necessarily should be because of these storms and surges, that it's important to make sure that they're able to stand up to these. So the project objectives is minimizing overall damages, saving people's possessions, which kind of goes with the avoiding displacement, and overall just providing comfort that if you're in this area and you have, hurricane comes out of nowhere for some reason, that you can feel comfortable if you're not able to evacuate, that you can stay in your home. So I'm going to go into like the different elements and kind of some like structural before I get into the internal. And so with air, just considering I decided that the house was going to be shaped as a hexagon instead of a rectangle or a square, just so that there was the air circulation around it. I'm also going to have to consider like the air vents and putting those on, and then making sure that everything is fastened and how it should be to resist these winds. Fire, there's many things that come from the house, even just the landscape itself. So making sure that the area is cleared how it should be, from the exterior with the eaves and the sidings, making sure that debris and embers can't get caught and then possibly cause a fire. And of course, just making sure to have lots of internal things like radios, escape routes. Some of the sprinklers, I was considering using the concealed sprinklers inside. And then also shown is a pull down like window protector that would not only help against wind, but especially fire, because it doesn't allow the embers to like sit on the sill and have something to catch onto. And the last one is water. We are in southern Florida. They're practically in the water already. So just kind of what I did see was this flood wall. I haven't worked too much with the surrounding landscape yet, but I was considering having a flood wall that would kind of divert the water in a different direction. Having like a sump pump to make sure that when the bottom level, because I will have a concrete hexagon foundation that's a lot smaller underneath, because the house is up on stilts. So making sure, which I also would like some recommendations with when we get into the plans of if I have enough space in certain areas to be able to put all of these different like plumbing and stuff like that. And then these are just some of the regional code priorities, which kind of overlap with what I was talking about and what I'm going to get into. And my concept is a compass. I originally came by this concept when I was going out on campus and I was collecting materials that I considered to be strong and resilient. And from there, I did some sketches, looked at the sketches, switched it back up, and converted those into words. So a lot of what the main thing was that got me to this was direction, and a compass, not only reminds me of direction, but I thought it was kind of appropriate for being in such like a wet area. And I also enjoyed how from the center of the compass, I was able to come up with other shapes that I could incorporate with it, especially like with the diamond and how the diamond itself could be used to make different shapes. So I was just kind of exploring like what I could use that pattern for in tiles, fabrics, and wallpapers. Then these are my bubble diagrams. The main thing is that I'm going to be having a safe room at the center of the house. And the safe room is safest when it is surrounded by 4 interior walls. So I really was stemming everything off of that. I originally had 2 bedrooms, but had to add a third because since this is not an existing plan, I have been slowly shrinking down the hexagon of my house. But I did, Rose recommended I should do an ADA floor plan, which I found that helped with all the extra space that I had. In my program, mainly focusing on the bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, dining, living room, family room, and the safe room. So the safe room, I didn't develop it too much, so I'll just go through even though that's covering it. So making sure that has like the proper supplies, emergency food, water, being able to have built-in storage because they only require 5 square feet per person in a safe room. So it is very condensed, and I'm gonna have to come up with creative ways. And I'm thinking maybe like a fold down bench or something so someone could sleep, God forbid that they had to stay any longer. And then from there, this was my first block diagram. I have this listed as number 2 because it correlates with the second bubble diagram since I chose the other one. And so with this one, the main difference is, where's my mouse? Can you see my mouse? Awesome. Over here, having a guest room instead of on the other one, it's like storage, and I had the room over here. But I was mainly messing with the top part. I seem to have a better foundation when it came to kind of under and around, but organizing the dining, kitchen, and living room and kind of the flow of that. But then when I went and did like ADA and everything had to be pushed a little further, I was able to kind of figure out more of a flow when it came to the living, kitchen, dining. And in this one, I actually had it reversed. And so I do have a lot of big storage areas, but that's because I'm thinking that the attic is mainly going to be for like HVAC and things like that and not as much storage. And even the underneath like concrete part is probably as big as the center core here. And with the stairs that go down, there will be some room for storage, but I wouldn't want them going downstairs and upstairs every time to try to get something. And also if there was one of these you could use for emergency supplies. So if there wasn't enough room in the safe room for all of the supplies, you could quickly go and get that and bring it there. And also not on my program, I did want to include a mudroom as an entrance with a custom millwork that I made that's basically a bench and has extra storage. And then also a little library area that I wanted to make ADA. And so these are just some of 3D perspectives that show exclusively the custom pieces that I have to make. Like this is a ADA dresser and desk. So an issue that I had with this is I'm not sure with the grab heights, it's supposed to be 15 inches. And in the one that I was looking at for a reference, it had a bottom drawer, but I wasn't sure if you go to open a drawer at 15 inches, if they would actually be able to reach inside the drawer even lower. So wasn't sure about that. So I did lift it up and I thought that might also be good in case there was any water damage or anything, even though the house is elevated, so there shouldn't. I'm gonna have to make the counter here because I want that nice angle that kind of complements the travel throughout the space. And then there's the mud bench. And over here is an ADA nook, which I do go into. And so with the nook, it was kind of like, whenever you look up a nook, it's just something to sit on, a little area. And I thought that someone in a wheelchair doesn't necessarily get to have that experience of being in an enclosed space if you wanted to read or just kind of relax. So I did have that on what the side that gets the most sun in the house as well. And so I wanted to have a little protection. And then that also helped me. I want to incorporate cork and bamboo into just the interiors, but specifically with this one as well. And I thought that this coaster actually gave me like a good visual of how the cork and the bamboo actually look next to each other. And then just kind of looking at the acoustic panels from the diamonds and the shape that makes. I like the hexagons that they can make because that was another shape that I gotten from the compass. But also the star shape itself reminds me of the directions in the compass. So I want to use bamboo furniture. And I have a little preliminary material board here. So for flooring, I want to use eco-resilient flooring. And these floors are constructed for materials that have a lower environmental impact, such as rapidly renewable resources or recycled content. Eco-resilient floors are 100% PVC free with dent-proof, waterproof, and scratch-resistant qualities. For fabrics, I was going to try to use recycled nylon and polyester. So trying to use a lot of recycled materials since this is a new construction. And it's also not too far from the Florida Everglades. So I feel like there's almost has to be a nod to sustainability when you're in such a rich area like that. And instead of using concrete, I actually came across, it's called ferroc, and it's produced mainly from recycled materials such as waste steel dust and silica from ground up glass. And the steel dust reacts with carbon dioxide to produce iron carbonate, which becomes ferroc after solidification and results in carbon dioxide absorption during its production, which just adds to its sustainability. And throughout the house, I just kind of wanted to incorporate, like I said, recycled materials, so more recycled plastics for furniture, even like reclaimed wood. And yeah, thank you for listening. Any questions, ideas, concerns?
Thank you, Mikaila. Let's open it up for some feedback. Oh, she is driving. I knew you were driving, Monica. Can you talk? I'll unmute you. You don't. Maybe I can't. Yeah, Monica, you're muted. I don't think I can unmute you. I can remove you. Well, maybe I can do it here. No, it won't let me. All right. Well, she's figuring it out.
I was having technical difficulties too, so I can't say much.
Okay. Well, I think it's come a long way, Mikaila. You think about everything, and sometimes that's a great feature to have, and sometimes it's a detriment. It slows you down sometimes, and you get caught up in details, which it's great because you're looking at all the details. Um, I like that you picked a specific location. I think that helps you, and especially in Florida, which is a practice act state. They have a lot of codes and compliances that you have to be mindful of, like the materials that you've selected. Mold is a critical component there. So those are things that really can help with your selection process with your FF&E.
Thank you.
So just some initial thoughts.
I
I
thought
won't let-
you had touched on a bunch of the kind of requirements of existing in an environment like that, right? With the uplift issues and the hurricane rated enclosures, and that you showed the roll down shutters on the windows. And I think right now those are kind of like necessity, right? Those are built on kind of need because of where this is. And I was curious if there was a way for you to start to think about how do we take those things and like use them or transform the way we use them so that they're not just utilitarian. They're not just shutters on the windows. Like, what if we turn the, do something to those shutters so that they become a feature? So when you close them, they're of a different color. Like there's this idea of like taking what you have, what you need to have, but then also using it. Like instead of just being given it, grab a hold of it and say, run with it. And I'd be really curious to see if like, some of that stuff that's happening on the outside could maybe start to happen on the inside and vice versa. Because you have interesting things about the compass and the points and the linear elements in the interior finishes, but then we don't talk about any of that really on the outside. But then when you talk about the shutters and stuff, you don't really talk about those on the inside. So I guess I'm thinking, what if we try to, or I urge you to maybe think about it more holistically and start to say like, hey, where I have this opening between the kitchen and the living room or dining room, it could be a giant shutter. And, I don't know.
Oh,
The coolest looking
yeah.
shutter ever. I don't, not necessarily hurricane rated, but like the idea that what are shutters, right? They're these big things that provide barriers when you need barriers, but they also go away to provide openings when you want openings. So how do you think about using one of those in the space, or using something? What if the whole safe room is not just a giant concrete thing, like a giant series of shutters that all roll up and roll down or something? So anyways, I think you got a lot of stuff going on the outside and a lot of stuff going on the inside, and they all have their strengths everywhere. I think it's really, for me, about kind of starting to connect all of these things and starting to make it one holistic thing as you approach everything.
No, I really like that. Thank you. I like like you were saying, the reflection of the outside to the inside. And I feel like that's another thing about feeling safe, is that it's like, these things aren't necessarily just here for that purpose. Like you're saying, can also be aesthetic and more everyday, and not just, all right, the shutters only come out because a hurricane's coming. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Am I here? Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yes, we can.
hello,
no,
Bella.
Oh, you went back to mute,
I know you're
Monica.
muted again.
Yeah. Oh, great. She told me she pulled over. She's lying. Monica, you muted again. You were here and then you left.
How about now?
Yes.
All right, hopefully for good. Great job. I did love the comments about the exterior. I'm wondering if, and sorry if I missed this, but are you picturing a group of these together in the space, or like a group of these together on site, or are they like one off in one place and one off in another place? And how, if they are grouped together, do you know if you can arrange them in certain ways where the wind isn't a factor or is more or less inferior?
Yeah, I was thinking more individual, but it is like an area where there really are no houses. So it could be an opportunity to have those kind of, as almost a little community. And because I thought about that, I was like, if I have it so that the wind is going around my house, but then it almost meets up on the other side, does that mean I'm sending my neighbor like an even stronger
Yeah.
wind, you know, so.
Yeah, and also I feel like if they're just, I'd like you to look into kind of creating like a group of them, because I feel like if you just have one in one area and a storm's coming, it's like, hey, I can stay. All of you peasants must leave now,
Yep,
and go
yep.
seek your own shelter. So I think it would be really great. Sorry, all I can picture is like Game of Thrones and people fighting over this one safe building. Speaking of the safe, I'm wondering, I know you mentioned the minimum for the safe room. Is there a maximum for the safe room? Is there a reason why it has to be so small? And if it can be bigger, can you do it as a double of something? So it's not just this one space wasted for the safe room. Maybe it's a pantry where I think I showed you the resource furniture. One of the beds comes down and it uses that shelf as basically the footboard.
Yeah.
What if
Yep.
you had a bunch of Murphy beds in the pantry, and on the face of those there are shelves on hinges that rotate when you pull them down. So it's pantry most of the time, and in the off time that you need that safe room, you also have enough space in the safe room to withstand however long you're going to be in there. But you don't need to then clear off all the shelves of everything because they just rotate down and they're stored underneath the bed.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
think trying to get all of that in there and then having a space that's so tiny, and it's the most important part of the home, really. The best part is that you have this safe room in your home. Why not make the most out of it? Why not make it comfortable? Why not make it a place where you actually want to spend time? Because if I'm going to be stranded in a room with my family that's very, very tiny for an extended
Yeah.
period of time, I'd rather go to the shelter.
Yeah, yeah.
So just take into consideration that how much space is being used, because I know we've talked about the space of the building a lot and the number of rooms in there and what are those rooms being actually used for. But I think you can combine some of the rooms and have them dual purpose and either make the whole thing smaller, or I don't know if smaller is better in high wind situations, or if maybe if it's better on one level or a second level that's slightly smaller, so it gives it more of a peak to go over. I'm not sure, but I'd like to at least see the safe room bigger with a dual multiple purpose, so it's not just, again, wasted, ultimately uncomfortable space.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else did
Just
I
to
don't
add
know what
on to
that's-
that, I think you have to ask yourself, why is the whole thing not a safe room? Like, why is this whole house not the safe room? And so I think the question there is just, how do you do you really want to live in a bunker? And how do you then make the change between those two, or make that transition? Because I think you're right, Monica, like that is the crucial, critical piece, but then it's relegated down to this tiny little thing in the center. And so, yeah, how do you make that do more for you?
Yeah. I'm trying to read this. It looks like hook rope or hook rope. I'm unsure of this note. I think that's it. And if I identify what that says, I will let you know. But I think you did a really great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? Oh, go ahead, Ashley. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I thought overall, I think this is a really cool concept. I was definitely intrigued by all your research that you did. I was like, oh wow, I never thought about that, because living in New Hampshire, we don't have all these natural disasters. So to me, the whole idea of where this all came up with was just so fascinating. And I definitely agree with Monica about making the safe room, bigger and multi-use would be awesome. And I was also wondering, it was kind of hard to tell in the floor plan, but you talked about making it ADA. Is that safe room ADA? It looked kind of small. Do you have that turning radius in there? So if you were to make it a little bigger and make it multi-purpose, you're kind of killing two birds with one stone there.
Yeah.
And I was also just kind of looking at like your kind of millwork pieces and things like that. And I know your compass has a lot of like points and stuff, but just be aware of like you have a pretty open concept, you know, especially in your kitchen and your living, and just in that top left corner, I see this really sharp edge, and I just see children's heads bashing them, or you know, like I just see accidents waiting to happen at these really sharp corners. So maybe those just get eased a little bit, or maybe you say, like, I love the like the nook and how, like, you know, the sharp corners, you know, above your head kind of thing, but like it's still there and it's still bringing the concept. So just being mindful of where those sharp corners are. But I think it's a really cool project overall.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I know what it says now. It says Nook roof. Can you go to your with the little yeah that why
You don't like my peak? Honestly, I saw a picture
think
and I thought it was cute, and I was like, I want to make that an ADA nook. You don't like it? Well, I was also thinking of putting. Oh, you're muted again. I'm not sure if you know.
I don't know why
There you
it's
go.
doing that, driving me crazy. Yeah, no, and maybe it's just the way it looks without color, but I feel like it was like just one of those things you bought for your, you know, your 8-year-old at Walmart and kind of set up rather than a built-in kind of feature. I know you were trying to get that
Oh,
peak in there, but maybe if it's like a built-in soffit with an actual wall and that that plank or paneling or bamboo you were talking about, maybe that's in a chevron pattern on the wall behind, and that's where you get the peak. But I think, I don't know, I just feels like it lessens the design. And there's other ways to approach it that look more built in and feel more part of the home rather than this is something I bought and put here for my kids.
Yeah.
Respectfully.
No, I like that. Pushing it back into the wall. That would look a lot better. You're right.
Or just building walls around it, so you're not actually like needing to protrude anything, or putting it next to a closet so you're making sense of the space or the space you're losing, something like that.
Oh yeah, I see. So it's
Something
not just
more
a room
permanent,
and thrown
I
in
guess.
there. Yeah.
Right. So something more permanent looking is what I'm
more
yearning
integrated.
for.
More integrated.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
On that note, I just wanted to add one comment. Beautiful presentation, Mikaila. Wonderful idea for a project. Such a unique, fun thing. And like others said, the research was really interesting. And I don't know, didn't know much about safe rooms and all this, you know, natural disaster accommodations that are needed. So it was really kind of educational. I loved it. But just kind of on that element of the roof here, I think it'd be really interesting as you start to develop your ceilings. I'm really intrigued on what it's gonna be. I don't envision them flat like you're currently showing in your perspectives, but again, I don't know the limitations with the safety concern of the building height and like what is going to happen, but I think it might be really interesting to kind of explore that further as you continue to develop your design.
Yeah, no, I love that, especially because honestly, I haven't put too much thought into the ceiling yet, just because I'm not sure with like the HVAC and everything. I was more laying out the rooms. So that'll be something great to keep in mind when I do to go and like lay all that out. That'd be awesome.
I think it'd be great to look at if we could put some of the building systems up there too, because that would reinforce the resiliency feature. Yeah. I was surprised in the research how many people don't leave and don't evacuate and want to stay on. I mean, that's shocking to me. And that was something that, I mean, and it's increasing and the risks are getting higher, the consequences, you know, to the point where rescue teams refuse to go in, and you can't blame them because it's too dangerous. So that has documentation and research has been really interesting on that. Thank you, Mikaila.
Yeah, of course. Thank you
We
guys.
gave you a lot to think about.
Yes, it all kind of came together too, so that was great.
Okay. we have our final presentation for the evening.
That's me.
You're on and I'm on mute.
Let me figure out.
Let's see.
All right, you all might see yourselves if I share it this way, but I'm gonna trial and error here. Okay. We can see it, we're good. Perfect. All right, can you see my mouse by chance? Okay, awesome. All right. Just making sure it was going. Okay, so my name is Bianca Cunha, and my thesis project is on the adaptive reuse of the Orpheum Theater in New Bedford into a dinner theater and boutique hotel called The Script, which is like a whole mouthful, but first I want to say a special thank you to my internal thesis advisor, Abby, and my external thesis advisor, Michael. Thank you for your constant support and like always being willing to answer all my panicked text messages. And I want to start off by kind of giving a little bit of history of the building. So the architect was Louis E. Destremps. He was also known for being the architect that did the Star Store. Some of you may be familiar with that building. And so the building was originally constructed for the French Sharpshooters Club of New Bedford, and they designated the theater to be leased to the Orpheum. So aside from the theater, there was actually a ballroom, retail space, and a whole shooting range inside of this building as well. It went through a few different private owners. It was briefly, a section of it was a small market for some time, and then it sat vacant for, it's been sitting vacant for many years. And I grew up in this area. I've seen this building since I was a kid. Locals just talk about this building. It's always brought up like every so often that nobody wants to see it go, but nobody knows what to do with it. And so with the train coming to New Bedford and the anticipation of a lot more visitors coming to New Bedford, my like client is more directed towards both locals and visitors, because I think it's important to have a space where the two can come together and enjoy. So that way visitors can learn about New Bedford from locals and from the building itself. So here's some location information. The address is 1005 South Water Street, New Bedford, which is considered like the south end of New Bedford. And some location highlights are that it's nearby a lot of public transportation. So the T, there's a lot of bus stops. It's like a 5-minute drive from the ferry to Martha's Vineyard, and only like a 6-minute drive to the downtown area, which is kind of like the hot spot of New Bedford. A lot of nightlife, a lot of restaurants, and then a 3-minute drive to the New Bedford Harbor and Harbor Walk, and a really good ice cream place too. So my introduction to the problem is that it's utilizing an existing building and renovating it to refit the new program requirements of the dinner theater, but also of the boutique hotel. And some challenges include the existing building shape. I actually had to add 2 new levels to the building, updating the building to meet code requirements and ensure ADA accessibility, which I'll talk more about when I go through the floor plans. So here's some existing space images. The first image is of the fresco. You can kind of see it in the second image too. It shines over the theater space. It's like the staple of this building that everyone talks about when you talk about this building, aside from the faces that look down on the outside. And the second image is obviously the theater space, and you can see the mezzanine in both that image and the image here in the middle on the bottom. The third image is a view of the hallway that you go through to get to the theater. And this image, the first image on the bottom row, is of the ballroom. So this is my concept statement. My concept is a frieze, and I'll read the statement because I feel like it really encompasses the entire concept. So, located in the heart of historical downtown New Bedford, the Script Boutique Hotel at the Orpheum immerses guests into a tale of transformation. Inspired by the concept of a frieze, this design is meant to narrate the history of the building over time, similar to how a frieze tells a story along its length. With a nod to its original classical architectural elements and its new additions of modern elements, the design celebrates history while moving forward to new beginnings. And then this is just some additional concept imagery that I feel speaks to the overall aesthetic that I'd like to incorporate in various spaces throughout the design. And I feel to get a better understanding on my inspiration for the design and the project overall, it's important to mention the precedent study that inspired me the most, which is the Liberty Hotel in Boston. It's basically an adaptive reuse of a jailhouse, and they transformed it into a luxury hotel. It was originally the Charles Street Jail, and it was constructed in 1851. And then the jailhouse closed due to overcrowding and like a whole mess of reasons. And then a investor saw the location and the building, and it became the hotel, and they added a whole addition to include more rooms. There's 18 rooms in the main jailhouse building, and then there's like 200 more in the addition.
And it was done by Cambridge 7.
And so this is my program. So the basement would be home to the kitchen that feeds the dinner theater. And the first floor is mainly the lobby and the cafe. The second floor is the second and third floor are mainly the theater spaces. So the second floor being the stage, the dinner theater dining area. There's some staff offices, obviously bathrooms for the guests and the staff. And then the third floor is the mezzanine. And there's also a little secret lounge and a bar and lounge area that I call the Sharpshooters Bar and Lounge as like a nod to the history of the French sharpshooters. And then the fourth and fifth floors would be strictly the hotel rooms. And those are the different sizes of hotel rooms that are included in that. So some codes and considerations, the overall square footage is 61,657 square feet. And there's a couple different occupancy types. There's assembly, a lot of A1, A2, and then residential R1. And I split up the total occupant load by the theater and the hotel because my entire design is kind of split into two, so you could see the relationship. So the theater's of 1,211, and then the hotel is 178 occupants. And then there are some ADA considerations. So you'll notice in the floor plans I'll show you, there's exterior ramps on either side of the building. There's elevators, there's ADA hotel rooms and bathrooms, and the stage does have an ADA lift as well. So here are my bubble diagrams. Approaching the bubble diagrams, I really wanted to separate it by where the hotel guest spaces are, where the theater guest spaces are, like the staff spaces, and then like where they might meet together. And then also a little space for the public can come in and access, which is mainly just the cafe. And I wanted to show the circulation so you could see the relationship between the spaces. And then that got carried through to my block diagrams, which I kept the same organization with that. So I could start to see the relationship of if you're a hotel guest and you come in and you want to go straight to your room, you can go one way. And if you're a theater guest and you want to go to your dinner theater, you can go the other way. So this is the first and second floor, and then the third floor and the fourth and fifth floors. And then I wanted to see the relationship of those spaces and like the occupants that would occupy them in levels. So this is my stacking diagram that shows that in color code. And then here are some future sustainable strategies I plan to incorporate, thinking about LEED. So the whole thing is adaptive reuse, obviously, but access to adequate public transportation, sustainable materials, thermal comfort management, acoustics, daylight, quality views, and interior lighting are just some. And then to walk you through the first floor plan, I wanted to separate it so you could see where you'd be going as a theater guest and where you'd be going as a hotel guest, because I feel like that separation is very important. So if you're a hotel guest, you come in, you go to the right, there's a lobby, there's reception, you check in, and you can go up the hotel stairs to your room or into the hotel elevator. There's a little snack bar if you're feeling hungry. And then the staff has a little office back here for them. And then if you're a theater guest, you can come in, go to the left. Here's your ticket booth that you would get your dinner theater ticket at, and you can go up the main stairs to the theater or to the theater guest elevator. And then the cafe is kind of that place that is welcome to all. So the public, hotel guests, theater guests, it's just that little spot that you can come in and grab a quick bite. And then I did include a service elevator. The idea is that the cafe wouldn't have like a full kitchen. It would just, the staff would bring up like quick pastries and stock the cafe that way through the elevator from the kitchen that's in the floor below. And then as you can see back here, there's a loading dock ramp. And on either side of the building is the ADA ramps for egress. And then this is just some preliminary 3D images of a rough idea of the space and what it would look like. So the cafe and the hotel lobby with some built architectural elements that are kind of a nod to its classic style. And then here is the lobby preliminary finishes. So I wanted to kind of give the feel of elegance, old theater, keep the elegant molding alive throughout as it is now, kind of falling apart. So it needs to be redone. And then I wanted to incorporate a wall that just was made like a custom wall covering made of like old newspaper clippings and the old posters of the theater, and the plays that they used to have there, just so when you come in, the first thing you see is the entire story and history of the building. And then I did feel it was important to incorporate textures as well. So that's some stone accent wall textures and stone for the desks, and then some classic fabric for the upholstery. And then all the flooring throughout the entire building is going to be resilient flooring. And then you'll see touches of carpet in certain spaces too. These two materials in particular are common throughout the building. So this is the theater floor. So the second floor is the dinner theater. And as you can see, this big space here is where you'll be dining and you can see the view of the stage. This floor, it is hard to tell in this image, but they are tiered. So that way nobody's constantly trying to look over someone's head in front of them. And there's a little hallway here that separates these spaces, so you're not walking out of the bathroom and straight into the dining area. And then there's some backstage areas, a dressing room. These are stairs that go down to the basement that has some storage for props and stuff down there, and some egress for staff that may be performances or performers or whoever's on stage and may need to exit. And then on the third floor, it's the mezzanine dining. And so all the tables closer to the wall here are regular height tables. And then the tables behind them are bar height, so they can see down to the stage, again, without any visibility issues. This here is the secret lounge. It's going to have like a little hidden door. It's kind of a candy bar style, just something, a little fun thing, kind of a play off of concession stand. And added storage. There's some staff space here. And then this is the Sharpshooters Bar and Lounge. Here is some preliminary 3Ds of the second floor and the third floor, so you can see the relationship between the bar height seats and the mezzanine. And then here are the finishes for the dining areas, so the main theater and the mezzanine. Very similar flow to what was displayed in the lobby. There is a lot of exposed brick, so I will be incorporating a lot of acoustical panels. So in addition to that, a lot of curtains, obviously, and things that would make it more sound. And then I would like to keep the fresco. It is a little decrepit now, so it might have to be a new fresco, but kind of keeping that same piece of history within the building. For the bar and the Sharpshooters Bar and Lounge, I wanted it to tell a different story, so the materials look very separate from what you've seen thus far. And I want the space to have elements of the sharpshooters history specifically throughout the throughout the room. So like on the wall and throughout the space, just to kind of give guests a different experience and a different story from the history of the building. And then for the 4th and 5th floors, it is the same exact layout. So these are all the hotel rooms. There are 2 suites. I'm mainly focusing on the Harbor King Deluxe room. So basically all these rooms, they sit in the front of the building and you would get a good view of the harbor. So that's why I named them all the harbor rooms. And the Harbor Deluxe room, you just have a little bit of a dining space. It's more spacious. And you have a lot of natural daylight and windows. So I wanted to focus in on that one specifically. And this is a preliminary 3D of that space. And then again, kind of similar to what I did with the Sharpshooters Lounge, I really wanted the rooms to also tell a different story. I wanted to keep that same element of storytelling, but this one to be, you walk in and you feel like it's airy, it's breathable, you have the view of the harbor, so it's almost a little bit sea breeze coastal, but connecting back to the concept of storytelling. And I want the guests to feel more relaxed. So the incorporation of lighter colors and more serene finishes was important to me. And then I do have some questions. So in the hotel floors, I have a center space that can easily be made into something cool. I didn't know if maybe a fitness center would be beneficial or a courtyard, which would be on like the 4th floor and it's open to above on the 5th floor. So the daylight's coming in and there's like biophilia in there. I thought that would be a cool experience. And then there is a lot of space on the mezzanine behind those bar height tables. So any creative ideas for people that might not have a view of the stage, but I could utilize that space for I'm open to hearing that as well. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Bianca. That was nice. Who owns this building now? Do we know? Is it owned by private?
Yeah, it's still under a private owner. I forget his name. He's tried to sell it a couple times, but has not worked well for him.
Well, maybe if we put these plans when you're done in his windows.
Yeah.
Let's open it up to your external advisor, Mike, to kick us off.
Well, I think this has come a long way since the last 2 weeks. We've been meeting regularly, but I think this is headed in a really great direction, and I cannot wait to see it come to fruition entirely. I think you did a great job of really weaving that concept in throughout your entire presentation. At the beginning, I do want you to make that connection between the frieze and the storytelling and the history of theater, because that's like why you made that decision, because theater is a way to tell a story, but also a frieze is, and how those ideas are the same, but how we can bring those together through this design, which I think you're doing. You should just verbally kind of use that as a cue in this to start. I think the imagery that you pulled together is great, and I think the pops of red that you have going are so true to the theater experience. One thing that I saw that never do a solid color carpet, especially a red one. You should put some texture in it just for some coverage, or give it a pattern or something, because it's going to wear down really fast. You'll see people's walking path really
Good.
quickly. So that's something to think about with that. But I think as far as your planning goes, you were having a lot of kind of issues with figuring out space and how it was going to work. But I think you have gone above and beyond. I'm really excited where you took it because it's exactly where I envisioned it going. If you want to go to your guest room plans, I think especially there, there's been so much development, and I think you really looked at space and really were thoughtful of like what a hotel room needs. So I think taking it to the next level is really honing in on that one room and telling the story in that room. So the one that you've pulled out, I would encourage you to really hone in on the details. Your furniture collection, your built-in stuff, the program of a hotel room, what's necessary, and like how does the user experience that space. So I can't wait to see the development of that, because you definitely are going to have a lot of special moments in there. I think that can relate. As far as the theater goes, I do have a couple of concerns. One of them, and I think we've kind of talked about this, is just how the acoustics is going to work in this building if there's a theater going on and there's hotel guest rooms like right above that where people might be trying to sleep, or just don't want to hear that. Like I would love to hear what ways you can mitigate that kind of noise transmission. And then also I would look at some different ways to break up the seating a little bit, and maybe because you're converting it to a dinner theater, so it's drastically reducing the amount or the capacity of seats that you can have in there. But you're also raising the quality of the experience, so it's a give and take. But I think maybe there's a chance for you to diversify that, which might be able to help you on the mezzanine. I think there are some opportunities for you to do more tiers up there and get some more seating. That might be an option. But I like what you did with all of this, and I think you should just, the secret lounge, you should just go for it and make it a speakeasy, like you were saying. I feel like it just would fit so well, and it's a small space, so it would be fun.
Sure.
But I think you're headed in a great direction. I love it. I'm biased, but
Thank you.
I think this is super fun. I love everything about this idea, and like the reuse and things like that. I was just kind of thinking while Mike was talking about, the seating, and you kind of had a question of how can you kind of utilize the upper floor, the mezzanine a little better. What if just the lower level, or like the second floor, the dinner theater, what if that was like dinner seating? And what if the mezzanine was more, standard seating where it gets kind of tiered and stuff? Because I had a little, like a small heart attack when I saw, like the bar seating and then your mezzanine, and I was like, somebody's definitely going over that edge. Like, just there's a lot of like, safety concerns in the aspect of that. And if it was maybe more tiered and, traditional seating. So, because then you were saying, how can I also utilize the space? And I was just kind of thinking in the back of my mind, like when a show is going on, you don't really want anything else going on unless it's behind a closed door, like your lounge and your speakeasy and things like that. Like that's behind closed doors. So that's kind of a separate area, but like your mezzanine being open, you want that to be quiet when there's a show going on. So I think utilizing maybe tiered traditional seating could be, you could maximize seating in that case. And then dinner theater seating, maybe playing with different sizes of tables, because it's not always going to be a group of 4. It could be a family of 10. It could be a night out. It could be a bachelor party or something, like like having different seating options. Maybe it's not all tables. Maybe it is kind of loungy. Maybe some people are coming just for drinks, and you pull that speakeasy out too. Like you know, it's maybe just a couple chairs and tables and like coffee table style. And I do wonder about on the second floor. I know you don't want to come out of the theater and see the bathrooms, but they're a little hidden and they're in a really kind of scary, dark, dead-end corridor. And I'm just thinking, you know, if you're entering from the west side, when you're coming out, you're still looking into storage and you're still looking into a service lobby. So like, there's not really ever going to be that perfect scenario of what you're coming out and seeing. But making that wayfinding maybe a little easier for the bathrooms, because if somebody's sitting at the front of the theater, now they're trudging to the back of the theater and then basically looping around again to get to the bathroom. So just thinking about the flow of space, and you know, you always want the bathrooms easy to find without making them a focal point, obviously. But I love this overall concept and I love all your finishes, and I'm excited to see this in 3D.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the storytelling aspect of it. You know, I love the custom walls, you know, covering that's made up of old articles and images and things. I think it's really cool. I can imagine it almost feels like a very modern way to tell a really old story. All of a sudden, you know, you're making something brand new and cool, but it's all about the old. And that made me think a little bit about the rest of those finishes that you were picking. And I think for me, I think you had said yourself you wanted to kind of celebrate the history, right? That's, I think, what you said. And I think if you pick a lot of finishes that then start to almost look classic or look historical, then you might be kind of like not necessarily hiding the history, like the true history, but you're not really like celebrating it. So I almost wonder if there's a little bit of a difference between the new and the old, to kind of really make sure that when you see, like you had like a lot of red carpets and stuff like that. Yes, they did a lot of that kind of stuff back then, but I imagine like you don't want us to wonder if this carpet was old or new, or if that wall surface was old or new. I think we really want to be like, oh, this is cool, this is old. In the Liberty Hotel, you know, the brick of the old cells was used, and the bars were the actual bars from the old cells. They were taken out, painted, and reinstalled. And so there is like this really kind of old feeling stuff everywhere. But then that was, you know, a glass railing next to it, so that like it's very different. A new modern glass railing would not be something that was in the Liberty when it was the Charles Street Jail. So this idea of kind of the new is slightly different than the old. It kind of helps celebrate the history of it, I think.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
On that note too, I really think it'd be interesting to explore a little bit more with the color. I think using that for wayfinding, whether it's the bathrooms, whether it's separating the hotel guests versus the theater guests, you know, I think I really appreciate you doing that study earlier in your presentation with that, you know, the wayfinding, because that's very important for your program and how you're going to flow and use this building. So maybe the finishes start to relate to that a little bit as well.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
Great job.
Thanks.
Great job, Bianca.
Thank you.
What a nice way to end our session 3. It was a really wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. As we wrap up group 3 of our marathon midterm reviews, I think they were really wonderful. Thanks again to our external thesis advisors. You guys were great. I love that you guys were here from the beginning to the end. I think you're the only group that really were much more active and participatory, and it made it really enjoyable. So thank you for sharing your expertise with all of our students. I'm going to toss it out to my colleagues if they like to add anything, Abby or Steph.
Yeah, it was fun in this group just to see most of these projects I haven't encountered before, except for Morgan. So it was new for me too, and really exciting to see the development that you all have. And yeah, thanks again for all of the contribution from the outside critics, because that really, it makes like, you know, the discussion that took place, I think really helped this group to grow and have a lot of ideas of where to take their project next.
Yeah, I echo that. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. You did great. I'm so proud of everyone.
It's nice. It's so nice. I love, like Stephanie said, it's nice to see the pre-thesis, and then I step away and get to see the everything in written form start to evolve. It's very very rewarding and exciting to see where it's going to go.
Can I add one more comment for Bianca?
Please do.
So I know there was discussion about the bathroom and kind of tucking them away because you don't want to see them. Obviously, the closer the bathroom is to the show, you don't want to miss the show, the better. It's easier to find, but it doesn't always have to be ugly. The entrance could be, there are really cool entrances to bathrooms. You could even kind of maybe do the speakeasy idea and maybe panel out the hallway or something. And it's, you know, this particular color panel is the men's room and this particular color panel is the women's room. So it's kind of disguised behind this kind of old-fashioned theme or something else. But it doesn't, I don't want you to feel like it necessarily has to be ugly or in your face as a obvious bathroom. It can be kind of disguised as something else too.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. All right.
Nice job, everyone. Nice job, everyone. Congrats.
Thank you. I was going to say external thesis advisors, when you have a moment, send off your, I like the celebration things going off. That's very good. We'll have champagne for our final one. Send your matrix to me just for accreditation reasons and feedback. We save everything for our ongoing assessment. All right, we'll be in touch. Yay, I know. Good.
Bye, everyone.
See you. Okay. Oh. Good night and